Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. As I stated in the previous podcast, the release of those government UFO files, the presidential UFO files, it was inadequate. I know there was 161 separate files, a lot of different images, different videos, a lot of different documents, FBI files that discuss UFOs, letters, all sorts of communications, some clippings from newspapers, all kinds of things like that. But it was inadequate. It doesn't provide disclosure to the people. It's basically the jumbo version of what we've already received in the past from the government. You know, basically different sorts of reports about you people seeing UFOs. There's nothing. They don't know what it is. In fact, even President Donald Trump made a statement like, "What the hell is it?" Right? We're asking you, what the hell is it? We're asking the government, what the hell is it? Not. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be asking us. We should be asking. That's what we've been asking you, right? And there's a lot of people within the UFO community right now who agree that this was inadequate. In fact, people like Ross Coulthart today, he had a posting on X, Twitter X, and we're going to just look at this, and then we're going to talk about an article that he's referring to here. He writes this. He says, "It is gravely concerning if, as this story from Liberation Times' Christopher Sharp alleges, former CIA operative Aaron Lukas, principal deputy director of national intelligence, a subordinate to the director of national intelligence, which is Tulsi Gabbard, is in fact not supporting and secretly undermining the president's publicly pledged full UAP disclosure. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence needs all the support it can get to push back against those in power who don't want the public to know about the legacy UAP tech and biologics retrieval program. The 80-year cover-up is real." Obviously, it's most certainly real. And he's talking about he's talking about the biologics and the recovered technology that things like David Grush testified under oath about, right? Anyway, it continues. He says, "Last week's promised maximum transparency on UAPs was clearly a limp effort with recycled, long declassified FBI and NASA files falsely touted as new. Is the Department of War thinking it can play games? There are many still classified high-res videos held by the Department of War and the intelligence community agencies that put the reality of NHI engagement with this planet beyond doubt." And then he says that they're all within these different agencies like the Department of Energy, the CIA, and NASA, and so on and so forth. "If the president is to be remembered as the president who fearlessly exposed the deep state, he should reject attempts to sabotage telling America the truth about an 80-year cover-up. The public's overwhelmingly keen response to the first Pursue UAP files release, over 500 million views so far, underlines how untenable it is for government to promise disclosure and fail to deliver. The public wants full disclosure. Anything else is empty promises. This is a crucial test of President Donald Trump's credibility." So that's what he's saying, and he's upset because he read this article from Christopher Sharp of Liberation Times. I'm going to pull that up right here. And this was published on Sunday. And the headline for this is "UFO Disclosure Battle Commences as Trump Administration Releases Files." So apparently there was a deputy intelligence department head here who's apparently blocking this stuff or trying to put the kibosh on it, according to this article. Anyway, we're going to we're going to go deeper into this article and take it from there. It says here, "But behind the optimism, several distinct groups of sources have told Liberation Times that the first release falls far short of what real disclosure would require. Despite promising signs and intent, sources tell Liberation Times that they have been left unimpressed and that the public must now stand up and demand more." Yes, the public must stand up and demand more because this is not what we want. I mean, this is not disclosure. It's basically a dog and pony show. Yeah, we're getting it. We're getting the jumbo version of things that we got before, right? But it's basically the same old kind of thing. There's right now you have the debunkers on trying to come up with trying to give you prosaic explanations for what was released. And yeah, they could do that because the government's not telling the full truth here. So anybody could say anything they want about what we're seeing in those videos, right? Could be anything at this point because the government they're not providing any answers whatsoever. They provided nothing. They just put it out there and said, "Hey, what do you think? What the hell is it?" Right? They want you to answer the question. No, that's not what we're looking at. I mean, when you think about it, I'm going to get into this a little bit later. When you think about it, you look at a lot of different UFO podcasts, right? Just podcasts. There's so many different ones I watch. There's better information on some UFO podcasts than what we've been getting from the government here. I mean, 161 files, and yet there's much more better information that you can find in different podcasts. I mean, just on my podcast alone, I brought people on here, like, for instance, last year, Jessica Ortiz from Compton, California, who captured an alien creature walking near her house, right? I had people on talking about actual real aliens, right? And then I also had, I have people that come on that provide video evidence on this podcast of stuff that they've been experiencing. I mean, there's all the stuff that I have on here when you think about it, the Las Vegas stuff, right? That's better than anything that the government has been releasing. They won't even talk about some of these things. And I mean, and you think about what Lou Elizondo said in different interviews, right, over the years, right? He says that the government has within its possession not just images of the craft, but images of creatures inside the craft. Where's that stuff at? Why aren't we getting that stuff? That would be a disclosure, wouldn't it? If you start releasing images of aliens that you actually captured while filming from a gun camera on a jet fighter or something, right? Wouldn't that be more interesting? Wouldn't that be moving us closer to disclosure, right? But what we got is basically the same old kind of stuff with, no explanation for anything. And some of the stuff people could say, well, they're just drones, or maybe it's a balloon, or maybe it's just a camera anomaly. Without the government coming clean, that's basically, we're in the same situation we were before. It's just like, it's like I think people in the government think that we're most people are just stupid. They just treat us like a bunch of dumb kids, right? That's what it is. That's all this seems like to me. But let's get back to this article. It says, on the quality of the material released so far, an intelligence source familiar with collection systems told Liberation Times that future imagery and video releases must come from national systems rather than tactical systems with lower security classifications. They said, the video footage that has been released came from tactical military systems with lower security classifications. What has not been released was collected by the national systems controlled by the National Reconnaissance Office and CIA, deployed in sensitive areas where no United States or Allied presence is publicly acknowledged. The source suggested that the CIA's clandestine collection capabilities may have captured scientific data relating to UFOs. They also claimed that more substantial disclosure could come from space-based electro-optical reconnaissance platforms operated by the NRO. The systems were not designed to monitor UFOs, but the source said such objects have likely appeared within their frames. The lack of analytical context has also caused frustration among people familiar with how such material would normally be assessed inside government. Adding to the frustrations, President Trump posted on Truth Social that people can decide for themselves. Yeah. See, I have a problem with that, right? Now, I'm not sure what President Trump knows about this stuff, right? But I think that some people are probably pulling the wool over his eyes too within government, probably within the secret control group. They're probably playing games with the president. He probably is not totally. He probably doesn't know everything that's going on. They probably never told him everything. That's probably what's going on. They probably told him something. I believe all presidents have to be told something about this, but they're keeping stuff from him, and they're just dragging him along, and he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He probably has no clue about what kind of stuff they really are holding back. Here's one. It says here, one source added, these files do not include the finished intelligence analysis produced by various departments and agencies. Those finished analyses would be classified and require review by the original classification authority before release. Liberation Times understands from another source that members of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence who are aware of classified UFO information may have expected fuller analytical context from the Trump administration. According to a person familiar with those expectations, the released documents were not regarded as disclosure. Of course they were not. I think anybody who has studied this knows that this was not disclosure. It was just, I think it's just another. Let's just treat them like idiots, and we'll show them this stuff. There's nothing in there. It's safe stuff that it doesn't prove one thing or another, right? We're not admitting to the reality that there's a non-human intelligent presence on the planet. We'll just do this and we'll move on for a little while, and we'll release another batch down the road. And that's the big question: what is that second batch going to be? I am very hopeful that maybe they'll see the error of their ways and try to correct things for the next time. But I don't know if they have the ability to do that. What kind of forces are inside the government? What is this? What is the who was behind this secret control group? Who was the one controlling this information? There must be some sort of a group, call it Majestic 12, whatever, but there must be something that's controlling this information, and perhaps even keeping a lot of this stuff away from the administration and as well as from people in Congress. Now, apparently, people in Congress have been seeing a lot of better things than we've been getting, right? I mean, Representative Tim Burch has said the holy crap stuff hasn't been released yet. So maybe the next time we'll get the holy crap stuff. But from this article, it sounds like there are efforts by some people within the government who are trying to keep this stuff from getting out to the public. There's still that's still happening. Anyway, let's continue here. It says, according to a person familiar with those expectations, the released documents were not regarded as disclosure. Furthermore, there are fears that files may have been planted in the release to discredit the topic. Another source who spoke to Liberation Times was baffled as to why the files included multiple FBI records but no content from the Department of Homeland Security, whose responsibilities include countering drone threats to the homeland. Yes, let's just stop there for a second. Think about the 2023 Las Vegas alien incident. The Las Vegas Metro Police Department erected a Homeland Security camera on that Kenmore property where the craft came down and landed in the backyard and alien beings are running all over the place. They installed that. So they have to know about this. And plus, I sent a letter to the Pentagon about that as well as to the Department of Energy. They never responded. They have to have some information about that incident as well as who knows how many other incidents, right? And plus, they know they have to have stuff, and they're not giving it up. Obviously, there's people behind the scenes pulling the strings, making it so that we don't ever get that information out to the public. That's what it seems like. Anyway, getting back to this article. It says, this is seen as a big omission as UFOs are consistently misidentified as drones and vice versa. Several intelligence and defense sources told Liberation Times that, in their view, UFO disclosure would mean an explicit acknowledgement that the United States has recovered vehicles and bodies of non-human origin, potentially including living beings. Yes, that's what I've been saying too. And also the second one here, an acknowledgement that the United States government has entered into cooperative agreements with non-human entities and has used their assistance to understand and adapt exotic technologies. Now, I always point out, I don't know if I believe in that one. There's just not a lot of information out there about potential deals. You hear stories, but about that we may have made a deal with these aliens. I don't know why aliens would want to make a deal with human beings. I mean, if they're way more advanced than we are. I mean, that would be like, to me, that would be like us making a deal with a wild boar in the bushes or something. That's how I look at it. It says here, 3 sources have claimed to Liberation Times that the Trump administration is facing resistance in its quest to release more substantial information by figures linked to the CIA. One person allegedly providing resistance, according to those sources, is Aaron Lukas, Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence. Lukas previously worked for the CIA, serving as an intelligence analyst and later as a station chief, a title usually associated with a substantial operational career. Much of his work with the agency remains classified, but he was previously described as a Foreign Service officer with the Department of State during this period. However, official records indicate that he was employed by the CIA from April 2004 onward, first as an analyst and then as an operations officer. And then it provides his official biography here. And then it talks later on. It says here, Politico recently reported that Lukas is seen as a favorite to lead the Office of the Director of National Intelligence if his current boss, Tulsi Gabbard, who has publicly advocated for greater UFO transparency, leaves her position. The director of the Pentagon's UFO office, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, must report to Lukas and Steve Feinberg, who is the Deputy Secretary of War. Publicly, Lukas welcomed the first batch of files released by the Department of War, and he did give a comment on X with regards to that. But the article says, sources have told Liberation Times that they suspect Lukas is working within the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in a way that protects CIA interests, including elements they believe may be opposed to President Trump's UFO Transparency Directive. These sources specifically pointed to the Weapons and Counter-Proliferation Mission Center and the Directorate of Science and Technology, which they allege have historically been among the CIA components most closely involved in the analysis and retrieval of UFOs. And then there's more to this article, but here's the thing. So there's obviously forces behind the scenes that don't want us to get this information that are, and obviously there was a charge here that they might have slipped in some deceptive information into those files that have nothing to do with UFOs, maybe to make it look like it's nothing to it, that kind of stuff. Now, I haven't gone through everything. There's a lot of stuff to look through, and I did not read all of it yet, right? But some of the stuff in there, it's all interesting and everything, but at the same time, it's a lot of it is just stuff that's already been in the public domain already, right? So that's why I don't think it's just, it's like, I don't know. It's the same old stuff, right? It's the same old all the time. We just don't get it. We just don't get what we want. Okay, now here's something that was from these recent files. This is one of the FBI contributions to this release, right? And it's basically an image of a real place, a real area, but it doesn't say where. And it has overlaid onto it an image of this oval-shaped object. They put that there. They AI generated it. And basically, it was just a report filed by some people who work in government. This is what it says with regards to this image. It says, actual site photo with FBI lab rendered graphic overlay depicting corroborating eyewitness reports from September 2023 of an apparent ellipsoid bronze metallic object materializing out of a bright light in the sky, 130 to 195 feet in length, and disappearing instantaneously. And then here's a color image of this thing, right? You can see this. This is the real site right down here, but this was overlaid onto it. And then there's a document that goes along with this that you could read about. Like, this explains what we're seeing here. But it doesn't tell you where it's at or anything. It says on September blank 2023, then there's a bunch of blanks. I guess there's the names of different people that saw this. It says blank and FBI special agent blank interviewed blank office and blank cell in building and blank. Supervisor sat in on the interview after being advised of the identity of the interviewing agents and the nature of the interview. Blank provided the following information. And then there's a lot of more blacked out stuff. So you got to try to, navigate through all this stuff to figure out what they're trying to explain here. But you could understand it. Basically what they're doing is they're blocking out names for the most part and their titles and where they're working at. It basically says blank had been the blank at blank for blank years. On September blank 2023, blank was with blank contractors working on a special project with blank. She had restricted the airspace in blank for the upcoming tests. At 7:02 a.m., the contractors received the base's standard blank. And then blank brief got into 3 vehicles and began driving to the site they were going to use for testing. So apparently there was some sort of a top secret test to go on here, and they're in a vehicle. There was multiple people in the vehicle from what I can gather out of this report with all these redactions on it. And it says here, blank drove the first vehicle with blank as the front passenger, blank contractors and blank were in the second and third vehicle. So there's multiple people in multiple vehicles going to some test site, basically. Between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m., blank drove down blank to a gate that restricted access to part of the blank, attempted to open the gate remotely using a fob. The gate opened just a little and then closed on 3 separate tries. On the 4th attempt, the gate opened completely and stayed open. There were no prior operational problems with that particular gate, and there were no operating issues with the gate after September blank. As blank was driving through the gate and she looked up and saw a cigar-shaped object with an extremely bright light southwest of them, approximately 500 to 300 feet from the nearest tree line. Agent note, the tree line was approximately 1 mile southwest of blank position. The object was already there when she looked up. The object was almost hovering, slowly moving from east to west. The light was an intense diamond white light with what appeared to be a ring around the light and was located on the eastern end of the object. The light was pointing southeast, and looking at it, the light was like looking into the sun. The object was metallic bronze in color and was the length of 2 or 3 Black Hawk helicopters lined up nose to tail. The width of the object was approximately the width of 1.5 Black Hawks, but was hard to determine due to the light on the object's eastern end, which may have been obscuring part of the body. body. The object was completely silent. Blank was initially annoyed when she saw the object because she had restricted the ranges for the test they were going to conduct that morning, but then she realized the object was not an aircraft or drone. Blank inched her vehicle forward while she and Blank watched the object. They watched the object for 5 to 10 seconds, and then the object just disappeared. The sky was clear with no clouds, and the object did I want to say it says sky was clear with no clouds, and the object did leave any contrails. I think they might have been saying did not leave any contrails. I think they might have meant to say that, because why would you say did leave any contrails? Yeah, you would have said if it left a contrail, you would have just said, and the object did leave contrails, but this says did leave any contrails. That means that they're meant to say did not leave any contrails, okay? Anyway, Blank and Blank searched the sky but did not see the object again. Blank did not notice any interference with her vehicle's engine while the object was visible. She only observed the one object and felt it left when it saw them. Blank drove to the test site where Blank, who was a passenger in the second vehicle, said he saw the object too. Blank would not have reported the object if she had seen it by herself. Several of her co-workers subsequently made fun of her due to her report. No photos or videos of the object were taken by Blank or the contractors. Blank had seen most of the aircraft and drones used by the United States military during her 15 years working at blank, 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 and had never seen anything like the object she observed. Okay, let's just look at what we just talked about here. Okay, now this is something that happened recently. There's no video or images to go with it, just an image of the site where it happened. That was it. And then they overlaid it with a AI computer-generated image of what the people saw, what this woman reported, along with the other people that were there, right? They all saw this. Multiple people saw it. It showed up and it disappeared. We talk about stuff like this all the time on the show, and these kinds of stories are basically nothing compared to the stuff we've been talking about. We're talking about the alien being. We're talking about people having alien encounters with these things. We're talking about people getting taken into craft and looked at and examined and having things done to them, missing time, all kinds of stuff like that. This is nothing, folks. I mean, these kinds of stories are a dime a dozen. I know it's coming from the government, and that makes it interesting. But here's the other thing. Why not just tell us where it is? Why is the location blacked out here I understand blacking somebody's name out. How about making it easier for the public and throw some pseudonyms in or something, like people in the UFO world do when they're talking about these kinds of things. I interview lots of different people on the phone sometimes, doing this show over the last few years. And a lot of times some people don't want their names out there. So I come up with a different name for it. It makes it easier for the people to understand. This is nonsense. This is all of this stuff, right? It's the same old stuff. This does not move the needle at all, actually. All it does is it gives more fodder for the debunkers to try to figure things out and provide their answers to it, and the government doesn't have to say anything. If you have Mick West down on explaining every UFO, this is just a flare in the air. Oh, this was just a parachute over here. Oh, this was just probably an anomaly, a camera anomaly. Oh, this is just compression artifacts, things like that, right? So this doesn't do anything. It doesn't show the world anything, really, in the end, when you really think about it, right? That's just the way it is. So, it's not impressive. And then on top of it, to learn that there are forces in the background that are trying to sabotage this whole situation. Well, see, that we're not going to get anywhere like this, folks. Let's see the real good stuff. Let's see this. We want to see the aliens. We want the admission that, you recovered craft and biologics. That's what the people want, not this stuff. This is not going to get us anywhere. Maybe, sometimes, I think, in fact, I was on another show this morning on another Utah channel, right? It was actually the same one from last week, but they had me on again. And I'm talking about this. I'm hoping, right, that at some point in the future, like maybe this is a step that they're taking, but then you read the story from Christopher Sharp in Liberation Times, and then you realize, wait a minute, no, it looks like they're still sabotaging this push. And then what really troubles me too is to see the former director of AARO, like Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. He seems supremely confident that we're not going to get any disclosure. Right? He's still standing by the lies he's been telling for the last few years, right? He's still doing it. So he in his mind, he seems very confident that nothing's going to ever come out on this. And there we go. And that's what I've been saying for a long time. Until it happens, I will not believe it. I just will not believe it. I don't see anything going on here. This is just a joke. It's a dog and pony show. It's just something to, here, we'll just throw them some little gums from the top of the bazooka. We'll just throw them some bazooka gums from the top of the fire truck here, like they're little dumb kids watching a parade, and then that should satisfy them for a few months, and then maybe we'll come back and we'll do the same thing to them. We'll show them some more pictures of videos we have no explanation for, and ask them, hey, what the hell is it? Do you know? Right? They know. The government knows. They know, and they're not telling you. That's what's going on here, people. Right? You've seen the evidence. There's enough evidence right now in the public domain to inform anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together that we are not alone. That's the bottom line here, folks. And this stuff that we've been getting, I'm sorry, it's just not satisfying. There's, it could be, maybe some of them, the stuff that they showed us could be, they could be machines built by non-human intelligence, but maybe some of them are drones, or maybe, for all I know, maybe all of them are drones. I don't know what we're looking at here, right? There's no explanation from the government. This is not disclosure. It's just like I said, it's just to appease us, to treat us like little dumb kids who are stupid. They think you're stupid. That's what it is. They think you're stupid. Everybody should be, screaming to their congressman, hey, we want disclosure. This is nonsense. You're insulting my intelligence. That's because that's what it is. A giant insult to intelligence, folks. That's what it is. So I guess, here's the thing. We need more people, talking to their elected representatives and telling them that they want disclosure. That's what we need. Send a letter to your congressman or your senator, or contact your senator or your congressman and say, look, we need disclosure. This is an insult to my intelligence. I know that you're hiding this stuff. We had people testifying under oath. We had a former Air Force official, David Grush, who testified under oath that we have recovered non-human craft and biologics, right? And we have them somewhere on ice, right? So we should be seeing that kind of stuff. We need that announcement. We need the world needs to know the truth about this situation instead of playing this stupid game. It's just a shame the way this whole thing is set up, folks. I mean, the people we have in power are withholding this stuff from you because they think you're stupid. They think they're better than you or something. That's how I view it, right? How else are you supposed to look at it? I'm sick of it. Everybody should be sick of this. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me here today. Until next time.